This is the Mooncast. Can you tell me a little bit more about you, a little bit more about your background for the audience too as well?
Okay, sure. So I'm from Istanbul. I studied mathematics and philosophy initially, and all my life it was the combination of the philosophical, societal questions and finding mathematical solutions for that, basically. And when I started my master's, cognitive science master's, which was a program based on computer science, linguistics, philosophy, and psychology, I actually wanted to study AI at that time. But at the same time, it was more interesting to work on something that is more related to specifically human intelligence. So then I switched to working on neuroscience, more psychophysics and neuroscience, and working on the how we conceive, how we perceive consciously. And the first year I started, we were taking a lot of computer science classes and everything. And my very junior friends who just started the college, they were mining Bitcoin. There were a couple of them who were mining Bitcoin. And back in the time, around 2013, there was a countrywide riots, and that was all about the like normal people, not like super leftist fraction or politically oriented people, the mostly students and white collars. They were basically trying to protect the park in the middle of the city, Istanbul, and then it spread it all around Turkey, and it's turned into an Occupy movement. And those were the years where we observed the democracy turning into the tyranny of the elected. And that's when I heard about Bitcoin, and my first reaction was like, well, okay, so we can do something, have money, and do anything basically without governments knowing about it. We'll be there. Amazing. So the ideological part was the first thing for me to get involved with it, and but we didn't even know, like, besides mining, how to actually like buy, like where to buy, like how to because I didn't have the as a person who studied academic topics most of my life at that time, I didn't have the means to like, I mean, means and also the understanding and habit to invest basically. So we didn't see it as a financial thing until around 2016. I wrote a white paper for small projects and got paid in Bitcoin. And for years, I didn't have anything except Bitcoin, and I did a couple of more jobs. I didn't know how to spend. There was nothing actually in Istanbul, in Turkey generally, except OTC. And that was like two people I knew of like the whole time. It was impossible, basically. And then I started working so I lost my kind of like contract and was working basically. Istanbul was generally like a Turkey politics was generally like a very hard environment in all sort of sides, like the war, the coup d'etat, the like it was super challenging at that time for an academic, like for a person who wants to build an academic career. And then I got headhunted by a French company, a market research company. I searched to big pharma for years, and it was basically Pfizer, Roche, Lilly, Danone, and I hated myself studying like the fun things, the actual problem for all my life, and being politically engaged and working on the productivity of the big pharma, and it was a very highly requiring job also. And then one day I decided to build my own company and wanted to concentrate on sustainability related startups and like make a change, like make the quantitative data driven strategies and market research available in a small scale and help startups building their business models until they get funded. And we built the company in the UK. That was my first company, first entrepreneurial journey. And the beginning of August 2019, just a little bit before COVID, I left Turkey and we were building communities, sustainability, startup related communities, and we're traveling around in Europe. And it was kind of like hide and seek with COVID. And then I came to Bali. And when I came to Bali, it was like right after that, basically, like in a couple of weeks, it was COVID. And for 6 months or so, we didn't have much um, way to actually leave, or there was not much of a thing for me to leave. But I really enjoyed doing this like startups, like this work for startups, and a couple of ones came out of it, and we did like successful introductions to VCs, got funded. So that's
Mm.
kind of like turned into like something that I enjoy. Um, and around August, 2020, I started the S21 community, Satoshi 21. I mean, it was not at that time, we were calling still a Bitcoin meetup. And then in a couple of months, it turned into a community, international community. We had people from international projects, met the MetaMask founder. There were a lot of people who were there because of the situation, because it was the island life. And we always prioritize the social and technological aspect rather than doing the price talk. And that's quickly made us put us in a different position than other crypto meetups, basically. So our
Mhm.
niche was coming together and talking about technology, science, the societal impact. For me, it was the main point because I'm coming from that background, and it's quite rare for within the Western society also to know actually like what difference it could make in real life. On like think about it way before the war in Ukraine and everything, and that was our reality most of my life. So and then since 2020, it was S21 mainly. It turned into a community of 1,800 entrepreneurs, Web3 founders, early blockchain, and like mainly Bitcoin investors, um, Web3 marketing agents, and different builders, basically. And now we're operating in mainly Bali, but with an international community. But also we did events in 8 countries, in Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, Istanbul, Turkey, the last time. And then we opened a Web3 hub and in Bali to basically start running our incubation and accelerator program with this community lounge concept as well.
Seeing that in understand how big the actual problem really is, because they just kind of see, Bitcoin and crypto for financial instrument purposes, but they don't really get to understand, that there's hyperinflation in some other areas. There's people that
Yeah.
can't send remittance to their family without them taking a 20 to 30% cut. There's people who
Yeah.
don't have bank accounts around the world. And because I'm well traveled, so I left the US. A little bit about me: I left the US when I was 19. And yes, I've been living overseas for like 10 years, been traveling around, been to over 15 different countries. And through my
Wow.
travels, I understood, yeah. And through my travels, I understood how big the sheer magnitude of the issue was in regards to people that there were billions of people that were outside of the financial system that we have currently. And that needed to
Yeah.
change, you know? And when I found and discovered Bitcoin, I realized that the light bulb hit me, and it was like this is the only solution, because it's not controlled by
Mm.
anybody. nobody can rob people of their value that they work hard for, what they exchange their time for, and they can't get their time back. And so for me, I immediately liquidated all of my stocks and went completely into Web3. And for me, it was in 2020. So I'm a little bit of a late bloomer. You know, for you, you've been in the space for much longer. But yeah, as you know, 1 year in crypto is like 4 years, like in real life.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, it moves so
sure.
fast. You know, the technology is always advancing. There's always new ideas, new systems, new things in place. You know, so I think it's really really good what you're doing at S21. And can you speak to me a bit about like the community and how it is there, and how to join as an entrepreneur if you're a inspiring entrepreneur and you want to be in the Web3 space? Like, how does it all work? How does it all function? Is it just a group where everyone kind of helps each other out in regards to deal flow, in regards to helping each other get fundraising and with marketing and with tools and with dev stacks and things of this nature? So can you just a little bit break it down for me?
Yes, sure. So first of all, the community is basically we choose the Telegram as this dynamic conversations, and it was mainly the conversations and real life action, basically, like where you come and you talk about like how you built anything you did, and to not to repeat each other's mistakes, because if you're going to build an exchange in certain jurisdiction and there's someone who did that before, you can actually have that information from first hand, so that not to repeat that mistake ever again. And I think the community for crypto is a very underestimated byproduct, and but it's actually very essential to it, because decentralized systems where everybody is like, okay, we're talking about self-sovereignty, and it's a beautiful thing. But if you don't have that community culture, once you decentralize it, like if there's nothing to reconcentrate people, the global community, the borderless community, then there's not much actually to talk about the impact or progress and everything, because every individual starts from scratch basically when they are in the coming to the community. So it was basically like a lot of like, it's a community now, the where you can actually go and like whenever you have any projects or you need like some listing or any deal flow, you go and like ask, is there anyone from this community, from this project, or this VC, this whatever, kind of like that's the essence of the interaction online, basically. And then now we're going to start the more in-depth accelerator program, basically. And we have some like different investors and investor groups and the initiator, and they have different criteria. So what we want to do, basically, build more and more partnerships. And once we screen, because our monthly gatherings is all about people coming and talking about their projects, like 3 minutes elevator pitch. Besides, anyone with a talent or with a professional career in tech, in web, not necessarily Web3 now, because it's kind of like, I mean, you need the web designer as well, even if you're a crypto project. So we don't want to restrict it. And it's like the whole like AI and everything, like it's changing. Like, so we're kind of like turning the whole the hub actually like with other cutting edge and web professionals. So you can basically come and talk to the talk about yourself, like what's your strength and everything. Because I realized quickly the most like most of the time we have a project and you might be a founder like a couple of times and like exited properly, and each time different tech or different industry, different location have different properties attached to it, and there are different difficulties, and nobody actually knows how to effectively work in a global workspace where you basically target anywhere in the world, because it's not a uniform crowd. So the most important thing is to provide that open stage, and Bali is a like very international, very high transactional points in that respect. That's why we are not in any crypto. I mean, first of all, we were here with the community, but I think the main point of having the hub and this these meetups in Bali is because like anyone can it can be a point for anyone traveling in Asia and in the world basically, and that's what's important. So people come and talk about like what they're doing and everything. So pitch yourself, spill yourself, kind of concept is open to anyone, and now we're starting the online and offline, a hybrid module of the entrepreneurship and the and targeting the web professionals generally. So um, if you're mainly working with a team online or offline in tech, and you have like you will meet some other people like BDs in some other cities and community managers for your online channels that are not necessarily in your base town. You eventually need to upgrade your skills of communication, your understanding, your and your resilience to like high turnover, or like different work hours, different sleep cycles, and um, anything basically. Because each time we're talking the diversity and the high level of inclusivity of blockchain projects and the blockchain itself, but nobody knows actually like how to achieve that and how to make it sustainable. If you have a diverse team, like some people from like Africa, from Asia, like your founders are all around the place, it's you don't know actually how to face any of this like the, different um, uh, differences in behaviors. So the program, the 4 week program, it's not going to be only like how to build tech and everything. So once the accelerate, like once the project admit to the accelerator module, there will be online and offline classes where you from how to like communication skills, the resilience or like stress management and competitors management, workspace, global workspace, and business ethics. Basically, how do we need to actually to expect the productivity from each other, from our company, how to build these different parameters and different methods to be ready for the next and future tech, basically. So, and when projects actually finish that corpus, then we fundraise with the no red flag graduating projects, basically. So that's kind of the model. So we build partnership with anyone in the community. So basically, like the access is now it's kind of a referral, but you can also like reach out to anyone from the website also.
Hmm.
It's always important to have that the first contact, because like it's crypto, it's full of scammers and fraud.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's always important to like come to the event and come to have the courage to like present yourself and know someone. And if you did business with anyone before, anyone to vet the new person, that's even better. But we usually like partner with the projects and project founders. So that's kind of the way we build the hub.
Yeah, makes absolute sense. You mentioned a couple of things, like one of them being communication, because we're building, or we've already built a B2B blockchain logistics solution for documentation and storage. And my CTO and my CEO on the project, they aren't the greatest effective communicators. So I've kind of been the one that's been handling the pitching and the fundraising aspect of the project. Enjoy talking. One of the most, if not the most important skill within the crypto community, because if you can't tell the proper story, then people are not going to understand your project and the totality of your project and the actual pain point that you're trying to solve. And another thing too I see with founders, which it's starting to change slowly, is creating actual business models and revenue generating business models, and I think that's some of the pitfalls that happened, during the free money train, where founders were just getting,
Yeah,
raises for just absolutely no reason at all. And it was just ridiculous. At that point, there was a craze going on in 2021, and I hope I think that we're shifting, and I hope that the shift continues to happen where we switch now to actual business models leveraging blockchain technology and tokenization models to improve society and streamline processes for businesses and for clients too as well, because that's the entire point. Otherwise, why are you building, in my opinion? And what's the purpose of you building, other than to do maybe a quick money grab or something like that? And with all this, with all the scammers and everything going on in this space, I want to ask you, because in the early days of the internet, it was kind of the same thing, with all these money grabs, and there was a lot of scams, pets.com and all these different types of things that were coming out back in the day. And so whenever there's new tech, there's always going to be a lot of people they're trying to make a quick buck. But my thing is, when do you think this stuff will die out and the industry solidifies itself? Is it recent? You think it's going to happen within the next few months with the Bitcoin ETF coming? How do you see the landscape of crypto for the future? I actually don't even call my companies and stuff like this with crypto. I say Web3 and blockchain, because crypto just gets such a bad light, in the public. So how do you see it in the next coming years, and also for this next bull run, or if you think there's going to be a bull run?
Well, yeah, it's a $1 million question. So I just want to make a few points about the crypto and the scammers and everything. So how I dealt with it, because there's always a question when I'm in a panel or like giving a public speech. It comes like, okay, what do we need to be careful about, the pitch decks or like the potential projects not to be scammed and everything. And there's a big list, but it's not exhaustive, obviously. Like, people are going to always find a different way to fool each other. And this is not only crypto, like it's basically like, I mean, if you think about the FTX, it's a traditional fraud, basically. Like, so right after the FTX, I had a public talk, and I changed it quickly to essential blockchain and cryptocurrencies values, because I personally believe that there's no such way to try to get the financial benefits of cryptocurrencies, which all these like 10x, 100x, and everything, without actually absorbing and understanding the ideological side of the cryptocurrencies. And that's why, I mean, it's going to be a cliche, but education and awareness is key, because of course there's a like mass adoption point where it comes for like it turns into a product for masses, and then at that point, like, it's very fast and it's all around and it's all available for anyone, and there's not really much of a time for anyone to learn the basics and everything. But these things are like, for instance, the why cryptocurrencies, like it's essential to understand why cryptocurrencies, because otherwise there's not much of a point of having your cryptocurrencies in a centralized exchange in the first place. So you cannot really like try to strip the ideological side of cryptocurrencies and try to like still expect the same financial benefits, basically. And when we look at the space, the last like 5 years or so, like the all ICO strategy, all ICO bubble turned into anyone fundraising with just a website, basically. Like, ICO period was basically having a tech solution to a problem, to a theoretical problem, to a computer science program, computer science problem applied to finance, and an infrastructure problem and everything. And then basically having that solution, you just need to build it. So there's only the application part you come up with, and that's how you fundraise. That's what you're fundraising for. So it was actually initially a startup, like, but now with anyone who can convince like bunch of people to throw a couple of grand, there you have crypto projects. And that's what was what we were dealing with the last 2 years, basically. And it sucked a lot of value, not only money, a lot of value out of the space, obviously. And we're partially complicit by not making it that available for, like, for instance, Bitcoin maxis. They're always like, oh, the other like altcoiners, they're here, like now we go, kind of like, of course, like when everything gets more popular and everything, I mean, it doesn't seem more fun or intimate anymore. But if you try to like just like keep yourself in that same cyberpunk society, and with like a bunch of tech geeks, then the industry itself is going to go to a different future, and we cannot really complain about it at that point. So it's kind of like, I mean, it's a decentralized industry, so we all have that responsibility to talk about the actual basic notions, like what does it mean for something to be permissionless? What does it entail? Like, what does it imply? And what are the setbacks? For instance, the if you can ask, like, okay, but these things, I mean, doesn't only happen in like the centralized exchanges and everything, but there you have a contradiction. And then you have the decentralized exchange and the scams, fraud, and everything there. But eventually, there you have a chance. You can actually build a better technology there. You can actually come up with a solution that is fraud resistance. And building fraud resistant technology is the central blockchain cryptocurrency's idea, nothing else. To build systems that relies on only mathematics, and that can operate in the presence of bad actors, is the essence of cryptocurrency. So if we try to strip that and try to like 10x only, that's not going to work, and you cannot really like complain at the end of it, right? So
Yeah.
and there you have like all this like on-chain parameters you can apply to on-chain criteria. You can actually choose your projects wisely for. Doesn't mean that all these projects are going to be successful or are going to be financially fruitful as well. Of course, there is a chance that like one project can tick all the boxes for like decentralization or the technology and everything, have the absolute amazing team, and still not make money, when we see that for like in a lot of layer ones and everything. But eventually there's like, I mean, some things are also it depends on the market as well. But there we can talk about a sustainably growing industry and the maturity of the whole industry, basically. What I'm thinking about, like how it's going to look like in the future, I think it's basically the VCs are waking up, because there was a time where all the VCs like suddenly turned into like crypto funds and everything, and they didn't
Hmm.
know how to do the due diligence for crypto projects. And
Yeah.
it's okay when an individual doesn't know how to do a due diligence for any project, but if you're, I mean, if you're venture capital firm, you and you're like dumping a lot of money, a lot of people's, I mean, some big investors' money also, then you might need to learn what you're doing. Like, and just because like they were throwing money to like multiplicity of them, and it was like doing quick returns and everything. Um, but most of them were keeping their money in centralized exchange also. So but now, when we look at all the parameters from VCs, when we're doing fundraising for any projects, you can only see like the prioritized topics, like not gaming even anymore, obviously, that's dead,
Mm.
but all the basics, infrastructure, layer ones, the like global payments, real life assets, and ZK, for instance, like, and nobody knows why ZK even, basically, like, but so maybe when we're trying to actually like evolve, we need to like kind of understand and create awareness about all this. I think we are going to, like, now it's kind of like a normalization, because a lot of crypto investors lost a lot of money, so it's kind of like hurt, and it's expected to next project, to like next run, to find the right amount of like right balance of good quality projects, good builders, good amount of builders, which still needs a lot of investment, and the projects that can convince the masses, which is not true because it's like hard tech that's going to, like, the VC's money go to hard tech basically, and not necessarily the industry. I mean, the retail actually understands the basics of it, so cannot really see as a investment opportunity. And that's where we come actually to build the awareness of the basic concepts, like here in Asia, for instance, and in many countries. Privacy, when we're talking about privacy, it doesn't exist. The concept itself, it doesn't exist. So if you don't have the notion or the importance
Yeah.
of privacy, then you cannot convince anyone to, because privacy seems like secrecy. And in like Asian, Middle Eastern, or maybe even African, don't know that much, but it's against collectivity. Like in family, you don't have secrets, and it's almost rude to have secrecy. And the
Yeah, that's
government
true in
also is
Africa.
kind of extent, yeah, right. So
Yeah.
it's kind of the extension of family, the government, and the state also. So like when you say privacy, like, is it kind of like shady? I mean, are you hiding something? Why am I
Hmm.
a criminal? But
Hmm.
that's not about it, right? Like, so if
Hmm.
people, if the mass doesn't know about these values and their importance in social scale, then they're not going to put like even $100 to privacy related technology. So
Yeah.
because these people are not using the international, like they're not moving so much funds internationally, um,
Hmm.
or like they don't have the. I mean, they are hurt by the hyperinflation, but I mean, who's going to like put all their assets on in crypto or try to find different projects if they don't have money to even invest in anything? So um, it's basically kind of like still so much of a middle class thing. And privacy, again, like it needs to be relevant and important for people, and accessible, these concepts and the importance of these, so that we can actually like recover it with the new blood, new money outside the another like mass adoption possibility. But I'm optimistic. Like, I mean, there are like the technology itself, it is turning into an infrastructure. A lot of people are building, a lot of like there people are working on tech problems, and
Hmm.
it's just a matter of time. And maybe we are not going to see that much of a like NFTs everywhere kind of a like 3 year.
Hey bro, I'm just trolling is something that will not just challenge your perspective, but also touch your heart and soul. It's a book that defies convention, blending art and literature into a thought-provoking masterpiece. A reflective piece of provocative art that tackles societal constructs from angles you've never considered. Hey bro, I'm just trolling delves into the very essence of our existence. It questions the technology that surrounds us, challenges our notions of beauty, stares unflinchingly into the eyes of death, and questions the boundaries of freedom. It scrutinized the educational system that molds our very future. This book is a journey, an exploration of shared human experience, and it's a work of art that refuses to be confined by tradition. It's a canvas painted with words, a melody of thought, and a testament to the power of creativity in a world dominated by algorithms and data. Visit moonboycapitalventures.com and get your hands on Hey Bro, I'm Just Trolling today. It's not just a book, it's a movement. Now let's jump back into the show.
I did a podcast recently with Francesco from Money Delics, and he's living currently right now in El Salvador. And so he was able to break down to me in a two-part series, basically everything about El Salvador, the Bitcoin adoption there and everything. And I think for countries that, people don't have so much income coming in, I think the best way to do it is to maybe start with like a hybrid, kind of what Bukele's doing, where they're still dollarized, but they also have Bitcoin as legal tender. Because if you look at it, one example that was given too as well is those farmers or people living out in rural areas that need to pay their bills every single month, the utility bills. They have to drive all the way to the city and wait in line at a bank to turn in their bills and pay their bills, and then drive all the way back. So that's it's not time effective, right? It's costly in terms of time. And so it's an opportunity cost, and that time could be allocated towards something else if they could just receive Bitcoin, and they could just then send Bitcoin to other people. But those people don't even have bank accounts. And so a way to, I guess, remedy that situation is to then just fire up a digital wallet and then receive Bitcoin and from, your clients or whatever, and then send that percentage of that Bitcoin to your utilities and so on. And so it solves a lot of problems in that aspect of now they have more time, and that time they can allocate towards either their families or making more money and increase the amount
Right.
of money that they can make, right? And so I think that that's one of the issues. I think that people are not looking at it. I actually don't believe in a fully decentralized world. I'm on the cusp of thinking that we can have a hybrid where the free market should be able to decide, right, what they want to use. I don't think, okay, we should just abolish fiat tomorrow and then just, Bitcoin has its own issues too as well with scaling. And, I know there's like the Lightning Network, but then that comes with its own counterparty risk of people need to be technically savvy to create their own Lightning node. And if you're not, you have to then rent or use somebody else's Lightning node, which comes with its own risk, and to open up that payment channel. So there are still things that need to be solved, but I do see it as a form of money. And why can't the free market decide if they want to use an alternative form of money? Because the free market decides what's valuable, and there's no stopping it. If you look at prohibition, you look at weed, even, like when the free market has decided that we want something, there's always going to be a supplier, and there's always going to be economic input and output because there's a demand for it, right? So there's no stopping that demand. So people want a decentralized money. Upwards of 100 million wallets currently right now in the Bitcoin, so there's a clear demand, huge demand for the technology. And whether that's to be used as a safe haven for hyperinflation, like in Argentina, Venezuela, Turkey, even, or if it's
Sure.
to send remittance payments because your family is now out of the Swift banking system because of sanctions, like in Russia, how that's an alternative means to be able to send value to your family if you're in the West and you're working or whatever the situation is with remittance, because they're just how else are you going to send money, when they're tapped out of the entire system. And so I think that there has to be an alternative means. Also, I look at CBDCs too as well. And I know you're probably familiar with the CBDCs that they're potentially going to get implemented in the future. And I see Bitcoin as that great neutralizer, because if I have, I don't know, toilet paper, and I'm in Kenya, and say I have Kenyan shillings, and I want to sell my toilet paper to you in, let's say you're in, I don't know, like a Bulgarian levs, and you have Bulgarian lev CBDCs, and I have Kenyan shilling CBDCs. Well, now there's a counterparty risk, because if I take on your Bulgarian levs for the toilet paper, well, then now that's a CBDC, and you could press a button and I can not have access to that money anymore. And so I think Bitcoin would be that great neutralizer, right? Because it's a decentralized form of money. And I'd rather accept Bitcoin than a CBDC, and trading CBDCs with imports and exports. I think it's way too risky, way too much counterparty risk to hold that into your reserves as a business or as a country, even a nation state. So I think the landscape of that is going to be interesting moving forward. But I wanted to switch over and ask you about women in Web3, right? And so what have you seen? Because you've been in the space for, I guess, about a decade, right? And what have you seen in regards to, do you see a shift happening with more women being interested in Web3 technologies? And do you think it's incremental? Do you think it's like growing at a compound annual growth rate of like 0.1% per year? Or how do you see the amount of women inflows into the space? And do you think that's going to increase over the course of time, or decrease, or just be sort of stagnant? And how can we get more women into Web3?
Well, so first of all, I think we need to highlight that's the approach I'm trying to whenever we have a women panel or anything, because I think it's important to talk about the issues, and this centralization, decentralization, debate is also exactly like this. Most people don't know what are the actual problem. Cryptocurrencies, blockchain, or women in tech is a solution for it, basically. So like like so they're like, well, I mean, crypto is like women friendly, so they can do better in bank compared to banking, but it's not really like that, right? So there's this like whole um, habits. There's like the lack of habits, especially. And when we're talking about like, okay, you can put your like build your wallet and have crypto anytime, anywhere, right? Okay, perfect. Does that mean the access gap, so-called, is actually bridged for women, for anyone in the world? Like, it's obviously not the case, because um, tech is something that is a little bit more intimidating, and that's not because it's intimidating for physics or math heavy curriculum, but it's because the cultural program of the governments that actually requires jobs generally for like the engineering and everything, and like push that for men, and less like that, more like outgoing or community driven service industry sort of jobs for women. So you like, if you don't practice something, obviously in generations and generations, you tend to make that choice, even if it's a deliberate choice. It's basically like there's a cultural effect to that. So there like we need to first understand the reasons, the causes that creates this um, disparity, for gender disparity for the sectors, basically. Um, I recently in Istanbul, when during DevConnect, I met a bunch of university students. They're all software engineer and no, actually computer engineer. And there was one girl who's been in the industry and the last 2 years, and like she's employed by like a lot of projects, obviously not as a lead developer because she's a student or a developer, but more in the community side, or like different events organizing and like helping the teams in the hackathons to deliver and everything. So that's actually very promising for a career for a product manager. And product manager is like one of the most important roles after the CEO, maybe, and sometimes even like way more important. And what I got, like when they were talking, like they were boys, and like she was also like very presentable and everything, and that's her comfort zone. And they said like, you. I always see her as the community manager. I think that's a perfect fit for her and everything. And I was like, sorry, aren't you like, you're not an engineer, like you're about to finish in a year? And she was like, yeah, but because people are like more because I'm usually in the community and events and everything. I'm like, don't buy that shit. Like, you can be you can aim for more. Like, it's not, I mean, it was kind of like super. I watched it like right in front of my eyes that
Mhm.
someone was actually like um, it being put into that title because like other people see it convenient for that girl to be a community manager rather than aiming for a product management or lead developer. I'm
Mhm.
not saying that would be more pleasant for her. Eventually, that's her decision, but that's kind of like all the inputs. Like, there's a positive reinforcement for more culturally accepted roles for women to fulfill. And then there's the difficulties for women to um, get to a higher position in traditional companies, traditional organizations, basically. Um, C-levels, unless you're coming from that kind of lineage with these connections, and like you did do very well, and you kind of can work in a corporate environment fulfilling those requirements, and with men, if it's tech and everything, um, it's a lot. Like, it's basically you need to suck up like a lot of things, basically. And that's I mean, that doesn't disappear in crypto, or like Web3 or blockchain, or like it exists, basically. If you're a founder, if you're a female and everything, there's this conception, there's this understanding, and it's mostly everywhere. People like, if you're a man and you're pitching for something, and you're insisting for people to like buy your product with the exact price your company decides to, you're a good seller. People might not buy it, but you're a good seller, you're a good businessman, you know your numbers, you're assertive and everything. But if you're a woman and you're doing it like you're all about like yourself, you're always trying to like put your company in front, or like you're overly competitive. Like, what makes anyone overly competitive anyway? Like, it's your, I mean, so all these prejudice and like all these things are getting accumulated for women, and it turns into like resentment and everything. And we usually find a way to take a step back. So it's so there comes like a bottleneck, even in crypto and Web3 or like whatever it is, even if there's an access ease for underrepresented group, let's say, because I think this is for anyone that are not coming traditionally from that role model, stereotypical persona. That might be a person that is not that presentable, that's not really educated abroad, or that's someone who's like coming from an ethnic background, like you never see an Afghani or Iraqi in like the top CEOs, that and this, it's very rare, for instance. All that like bubble, the media and like our surroundings actually creates a like discouragement for anyone that are that belong to these underrepresented communities. And what they're dealing with, it's basically like that loneliness, because it's kind of like there's that specific thing that most people around you cannot relate to, and that's the basis of loneliness. And usually that comes with like some different issues, like for your health, for your personal relationships, for your career and everything. And there's not an easy way to overcome this challenge, basically. And I suffered this also all my life without knowing the actual consequences of it, because I was always like getting along very well with men, more than like my girlfriends that much also. So it was kind of like I didn't realize that it was a like that there was something that I was actually going through. So but it might turn into like, I mean, you can easily like burn yourself out and everything, and or try to do things alone because of the because you're ambitious, basically, or because you are professional and you want to deliver, you're an idealist. And being an idealist can all easily turn into title for others to call you out in a like erroneously and unfairly, that you are overly competitive and everything, and that actually keeps you back from collaboration. You tend to do everything yourself and everything. But I think crypto and blockchain is basically the key for that, and that's why we created this collaboration called Trailblazers, and it's six female leaders of Web3 Web3 communities. Not only like they're all entrepreneurs in some ways or another, but they have their communities. Women in Blockchain Asia, APAC DAO, Embolden Ventures, Nakama ID, HerDAO, S21, and Philippines Blockchain Week, basically. So it's kind of like a regional amalgam of successful women in the region, building a community and thriving with that. So we wanted to collaborate, basically, and make it available for, and we didn't want to like put it out there as like women leaders, that and this. So that's why we called it like Trailblazers, because obviously, yeah, you see us as women and everything, whatever. But there's not much of a point of like highlighting it, because it's eventually like we might be let's say blind to some like women of color, their own problem, or like we might be blind to someone with some different neurodiversity, and because we all blend in this like same ways, and we hide the differences very well, but it doesn't mean that there's actually like we actually operate in the same way. We understand and process and experience everything the same way. So eventually making that available for everyone and for ourselves in the first place, it's important to talk about then inclusiveness of the space, or diversity or anything. But that's how we are building also now the program, the accelerator program, not only with only like entrepreneurship, tech and everything, but how to understand, how to communicate, how to work with a team from like a diverse audience, where you deal with all sort of neurodiverse individuals, basically. Just because they didn't get the first time, the way you said, the way you put it, like you maybe wrote everything down, it doesn't mean they're going to like fulfill everything in the same way at the due date and with the same productivity and the good quality. I mean, if you're a founder, if you don't learn how to effectively communicate with the team members coming from different backgrounds, then you're going to basically like either you're going to change the employee or like the collaborators every single time, and which is like a huge loss, or you're going to adapt, or you're going to learn how to collaborate with different people and everything. So it's not really a problem of women to make things, or like a problem of people of color. It's everybody's problem, because you're like one way or another,
Yeah.
if that person is more competent, then you will need to hire the women or the ethnic background person. And first, you need to like know these challenges, and you need to adapt it itself. It's not really like, well, okay, we open these positions to to women too. Like it's not that easy. It's not
Yeah.
like it's not an automatic thing. So I think crypto and blockchain has a potential to include more underrepresented communities in any way possible. Remote work, single mothers, even like it doesn't need to be something that is the remote work itself, like web generally actually provides this opportunity. But because of the ease of getting easily compensated working in a project overseas and everything, anyone has the potential to actually work in this international environment. But again, it comes to not only the technology or payment method and the availability of the jobs, but the mindset change of the employers and the other collaborators as well. So that's what I see, the community side of crypto, blockchain, Web3 communities. I see the biggest potential there, because we are more in contact rather than like one company, one corporation working with the employees, and it's like going to a 5-star hotel once a year. We are more dynamically engaged with each other, basically, as like the crypto community in the world.
Yeah, yeah. I want to, because I saw that you had partnered with some Web3 for Women organization in Africa. And I wanted to ask you a bit about that. Like, how did that partnership collaboration come about, and what is that about strategically? And do you see a shift happening in Africa with more women trying to get into Web3?
Well, actually, Africa is one of the earliest Bitcoin adopters. That's because of the some prominent early Bitcoin investment products running their projects, and the community building educational campaigns in Africa. But also, so it's kind of like there's an awareness, and maybe there were not that much tech builders at that time in terms of blockchain developers. And it's a great honor to actually collaborate with the women in blockchain and collaborate with their online hackathons, and giving the chance to like work closer with the top hackers, the winner of the hackathon with S21, and also the Core Hub Bali. And because it's all about like, okay, we're always talking about like how to find a good founder, and how to like find the good projects and invest and everything. But it's eventually an ecosystem. Like you can, if we build and decentralization, obviously always about that. Like decentralized projects, it's coming from the tradition of the founders vanishing. That's why we are called like Satoshi, basically, because it's not really about the founders, it's about all contributors. And if you're not making anyone a contributor in your project, you're not doing a crypto project. You're basically just using the blockchain technology to run a normal startup. And that's the difference, basically. Like when I'm talking about decentralization, it's not to say everything should be decentralized right now. Of course, if you're organizing and like if you're running a local event organization company, you might like choose to make it like centralized, or if you're like there are so many different examples of it. But it's also kind of plan. It's also kind of a scheme to apply as a software kind of, because you can basically reorganize any community, any of the project in a way that like everyone can contribute and get something out of it. And that's the mindset of the 21st century to go with, and you can organize it that way, and you might never be on chain, and that's even a good thing. Like you like that, because blockchain is only to it comes to place where you want to scale it globally. You might basically like do something that is not regionally dependent, but just operate in a couple of cities, and then maybe not doing it on chain. It doesn't, I mean, it gives you more cash to actually do some other things, and until you're operating in 50 cities or something. So using the blockchain mentality, the decentralization, and thinking about like how anyone who wants to contribute can contribute and can get something out of it is basically the key to understand that and to apply it. And I think that's exactly why we are collaborating with Women in Blockchain Asia, Women in Blockchain Africa, and it's at this epicenter of creating the opportunity and bridging the partnership with the service providers, the talents, and the projects and funding. So it's very exciting that they're building, and there are more communities who are not traditionally crypto centers or countries, and with the regulations and everything, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Do you see a world where everything's kind of running on automation and everything's fully decentralized? Is that how you see it?
I it's hard to tell. So basically, for me there are two aspects of it. For anything that can be automated, blockchain keeps us honest. It's a mathematics applied to certain transaction that makes it fraud, like resistant to fraud, removing that element of trust for things that you can actually like. You maybe not. You better not rely on each other's dignity, because like if you're doing a business basically overseas and everything, you might be like the best person in the world, but nobody can assure you if your kid is sick or like any scenario. If you can take that money, you will take it. Anyone would take it. Like there might be so many different scenarios where it leads people to actually come out of that like ethical zone. And I see most projects also going towards the direction of scams. Like, okay, there are projects who are intended to be a scam, but then there are projects who turn into a scam, or like a scam, because people either like raise tons of money without having having an onboarding or like community growth strategy or a revenue generating model, or they run out of money quickly, or they raise too much and they don't have any motivation left to build the product anymore, because then it's like passion for some other product, and or they get into a conflict between each other, and it's like there comes another think, so they never like fulfill that promise. It's easier to vanish. But these are the human side of the whole thing, and I see it very like, of course, it's not fun to lose money, but it's kind of like it's a fast um, experiment basically, and like collectively we learn a lot as well. So if you apply blockchain into things that we better not cheat, that's the
Yeah.
best. And
Yeah.
that's actually the for transactions, like that's the best, because like the organizations like um it's not because organizations are bad, like for instance banks, the states, or like any like insurance, like anything you may want to automate or put on blockchain. It's because it's run by people, and if people change, like it depends on the people's own characteristics or their own like life, and if we can do all that, like something that is relevant to the globe, we should do it on blockchain. And money is like that. Money is basically the like the currency that everyone can relate to each other, um, and it shouldn't be dependent on the government's own policies and their own like the war over petrol and that and this. There should be one unified currency. And just like you said, of course there should be like multiplicity and everything, and the market needs to be like needs to make their own decision to like to on like what to use whatever. When you talk about the programmable money, if it's centrally controlled, like in the case of CDBCs, how do you know it's not going to be like, for instance, like what if they say at one point, okay, this is your salary, you get $10,000, but it comes with a due date. You need to spend it in the first 3 months, and then you cannot hoard it actually, and it can be thing for, because the actual, even if it's an impersonal entity, we assume the actual benefit of the government and states, because they operate like a company, they have their own benefits, and that might be in conflict with the individual's benefits. And when that's a problem, that conflicts is the case, then you like the wealth accumulation for individuals is not a good thing, because they want the money to be in circulation, and that's how they actually like show the success and the power with against each other, which is actually needs to be for the protection of people, but it's rarely so. So it's kind of like messy when it's involved to that. So I think people need to be in control of, like, not maybe in control is but we need to decide. We need to like be in control of the process of how these things are shaping, because mostly I mean, if you're not coming from a wealthy family, most people are working their like, butt off to like have their basics, like the shelter, food, education, and that is the base, one of the basic rights. So just because it's money, it's not an abstract notion, but it's your right to have a shelter, right to have food, right to have like the quality health and everything. So just because it's money, it's not only business and everything, it's basically people's right to have the basic standard of living.
Yeah, for sure. I always refer to Maslow's theory of hierarchical needs. And yeah, so I think if you have the basics of safety, water, and food, then you can start the building blocks to work up yourself in a social economic status, and get up. Potentially not everyone's going to be able to the top of the pyramid, for sure, but I think overall, well said. I appreciate this conversation, Melissa. I have one last question before we go.
Sure.
How can people join Satoshi 21?
Well, this is Malcourt is my Telegram handle. You can message me, especially for partnership, and if you're a founder, if you have any contact with like crypto blockchain projects, now also AI, and also you can reach us www.satoshi20.1 in written. That's the website, and there you can also join the communities. And you can visit Core Hub Bali and join our meetups. It's every Wednesday, every first Wednesday of the month. And there's always a S21 event every Wednesday of the month. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time. I will leave links down below. And this concludes another great episode of the Mooncast, and peace.